Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for coming today, and yeah, welcome to Seven Peak Software. Yeah, it's been a while we don't see each other in the persons, but we always organize the webinar to keep sharing the interesting topic and the knowledge to the societies. And it's glad that we can organizing the meetup in the line with safety regulations and social distancing. And some of you know who we are, but some of you might not know who we are. We are 7P Software and Design Agency based in Bangkok, but we are generally from Norway. So we started in Norway since 2009, and after that we moved to Bangkok since 2014. Now we are in Thailand for more than 7 years to helping Thai clients and also international clients with different industries like telecom, e-commerce, retail, banking, and insurance. Okay, you can easily to find out on our social media. Please click like and follow on our Facebook and LinkedIn to know more about us and to catch up with the fascinating articles and the latest case study. And also we are always update the internal activity and also job opportunity in there. Okay, this is a few pictures from our internal activity from indoor and outdoor activities. And also we play a lot of sport too. At 7P Software, you will not good at just coding or the technical, you will good at everything. And also we work hard, play hard, and also we eat hard as well. In the office, every day we have like free snack, free drink, and a coffee every day in the office. And if you come to the office every Tuesday and Thursday, we will provide free lunch for everyone. Yeah, occasionally we have like wine sessions, barbecue sessions, cooking sessions, and also barbecue behind you. Okay, if you are the one that interesting to join us, we are also open a lot of positions like head of backend, senior backend, tech lead iOS, and yeah. So you can send the CV to me or to our TA staff at 7peak or www.7peaksoftware.com. Okay, so you can scan this QR code to see upcoming event and also job opportunities in there. Okay, so thank you for coming today again. So today we will be talking about .NET Summer Meetup, and I would like to invite the first speaker is Giorgio.
Technical times to switch the slide. Thank you. Okay. Yes. PARQ introduce the company. Here I introduce the cloud and the backend team that work in Azure. In Azure and Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, and .NET. These are the bad guys and the bad girls. This is about me. We are 1920 here, yes, and we are growing. If you refer your friends or send the CV for the position that PARQ showed you before. This is my presentation. I'm a bit old in this kind of subject and industry sectors. So just I started a long time ago, 2006. This is one of my certification, and this is all the roles that I covered in my job experience. Okay, start. Why I am here today? Why this evening I bothering you to speak about solid principles or solid pattern in .NET. I was born on the 19th of June 1982. If a smart calculation is exactly 40 years ago. This concept that I'm going to repeat to you was new, fresh for me when I start. These are the basic concept for the development. You acquire this knowledge, or if you study and practice, or by the practice. Probably you don't know, you cannot argue by the practice, you cannot argue in the same way when you study, okay? But at least you know the concept. So, make a short reasoning. That explains why I am here. Guys, for me, when I started, these two guys was I don't know if you know, probably there is a lot of new guy. Netscape Communicator, there is only two browsers. There is Netscape, Explorer, and Internet Explorer. Stop. Okay, let's consider this kind of reasoning. If I can consider myself old, then also this concept can be old, because it was fresh for me. Then this concept, they are always new from who is starting now. But there is a bit of differences. When I start was new because they are new. Now, who start, you young people start, this concept should be like the sky is blue. Something that is not so evident enough that is you have to study. Probably you listen for the first time, but this is established and the sky is blue, daylight is blue. So, moreover, I find myself in several situations where this situation give me a point of reflection to say, Giorgio, but I find the developer that don't know this concept, and they produce application code. Why the developer don't know them? There is a reason, a main something that they are, a belief that they are following to ignore them. Because there is people that don't know, people that try know, but they completely ignore them. They reply, yes, I know, but I choose to avoid them. Okay. So I start to ask, what are the walls that lock the developer in this situation? So, this evening, I am here to repeat them again. Okay, let's start. Solid. This is the acronym using for all the 5. Something is new about that? Someone listen them? Someone have an idea about what I'm speaking about? Yes, no, probably is the first time that, sorry, my communication, I am old, sorry. Do you know that? True or false? You ever listen that? Okay, false. Okay. Okay, single responsibility concept. Who knows that? See that this definition is not the definition that you find on internet, because this is the original definition, the original state of the principle. The single responsibility concept, principle, states a class should have one and only one reason for the change. This is the book where is mentioned this phrase. Here the people go in panic. Why? Because everyone knows this concept in that way. Every module class function should have a responsibility over a single part of the software functionality, of the software modules, depends about the entity. Now, if you think a bit, if one thing have only one responsibility, when you change something in this, you should have only one reason. This deduction here, born from the hypothesis over there. Sorry guys, the computer size born from math. So is over there. Before math, after computer science, not the reverse one. You cannot learn how to run without knowing how to walk. Easy peasy. Okay, a short example, because otherwise here, I know the people, there is a simple console app. In my age, the web was very archaic, so this was the daily bread. There is the sequence to ask some question to the user, read the input of the user, and print the several next command according the choice. Here, if you can see, this is taken from the C# corner here. Here we have exactly the breakdown, all the functionality that exist, that you can isolate into a single function. Print a message, 1. Read the input is the number 2. This block is the number 3, where is the main questionnaire about the person. 4, the validation. 5, the execution that print your username and password. Sorry, your first name and last name, I'm sorry. So, as example, as business logic or application or software app is very simple. There is no database loading, algorithm to sorting algorithm to apply, and so on. Very simple, short. But also from this kind of simple example, you can understand how you can apply that. This principle is so, those principles are so simple and basic that you can apply everywhere. Also in the simple program and main in C#. Here it is in C#, but this is so simple that you spend probably 10 minutes, 15 minutes to migrate into another programming language, Python, C, C++, and so on, Java, or whatever. So this is the first demonstration that those principles are so basic that can be scalable and at any level. No need an enterprise application to apply them. Okay, open-closed principle. So all the software entities, classes, module, function, should be open for extension, but closed for modification. What it means? That when I write my code, my class, my function, my module, whatever, this module should be so flexible enough to be extended, but so close, rigid, secure, up to you, enough to not be modified. Okay, this is the first random image that you can take from Google when you type the name of this principle. We have the beautiful interface here that is called iSaving account. In C# for who use another programming language, the interface starts with I and the name of the name of the interface that have something and have salary saving account and regular saving account. Simple. Is open for modification but close for extension. Sorry, is open for extension and closed for modification. I'm sorry. This in C# is one of the pattern that is matched one-to-one with the principal. That is called extensions. In C# exists the method, this way of write, where my class, without any change, receive my new method, without forcing my class. And here you do here what is new for you. I master, I am here to serve you. So, if I implement this simple class, static class, the object, the instance of my class, all the instances of my class, can call the method, my new method, without that this method is inside my class. I don't modify the object, my class. I extend the behavior of my class. This is one of the approach in C#.NET. Okay, this is the most tedious that everyone avoid. There is this now is a woman that in 1988, practically yesterday we can say, that called Barbara Liskov, that state that. Now, this symbol here is, you can read feedx. This statement say that any subtype of T can have the access to the same property where the instance is related. X and Y are the instance of T in this statement. The Y is the instance of S that is subtype T in this statement. Here, a bit of code probably help us. I have one class, admin data file user fixed, that extend two interface. I file reader, I file writer. Normally, we put here var, but no one violate you to say, okay, for my code, for reading this file, I need only this interface. This class extend this interface, implements this interface. I can use, I upcasting my object file reader as the father, and the father work. Declare the children, I upcast to the father, to the second father, and the father works. The method of the father works. Here there is another class that have extend always the file reader. Now, okay, Giorgio, this is a simple example where the father behave like the children. Fine, good, okay. But how use this list of principle in everyday life when I need to develop my enterprise application? Oh, sorry. You use every time. Who develop in C# now, at least with .NET Core or .NET 6, write this, not at transient, but try to write that. This is the list of principle. I declare the father and I have the child. The subtype of the subtype of T. This is S, and this is the subtype of S, that is T. Pretty every day. Who develop in C# knows that need to use the dependency injection and write that. Automatically or not automatically, you are using the list of principle. When you write facade, proxy connectors, something like that, this is very similar to the example before. I send email facade, SEM. I can create I can use this object as a Gmail sender email proxy. So I need to send my email with Gmail, okay? Or using a generic SMTP. Simple than that. This, for sure, this facade interface have the method send email, for sure. Okay. I slow down, sorry. Interface segregation. Need to segregate the interface, or better. This principle states that no code should be forced to depend on method it doesn't use. What it means. The first time, honestly, I didn't. I'm be honest with you. I didn't understand that. I remember that to understand this concept, there is my friend that come, and I study in the university. I stay on the desk. There is the long desk with the stage and the blackboards. There is my friend that come near to me and say me one word: contracts. On that time, I didn't understand him. He tried to help me, but I didn't achieve the meaning of that. If you go, if I ask to my friends again, that probably is connected, ciao Alessio, is you can see, you can read under this principle the word contract. What is a contract? Is something that defines your behavior. Something that defines your behavior can be in C# an interface or an abstract class. The interface specifies the behavior that you should have in your class or the abstract class, and your class, if you implement the interface or extend the abstract class, will be automatically have the dot behavior. If you are playing, this concept is required if you start to play with the agent in distributed systems. System agent was a bit old as technology, but is completely rewashed now for the system that need to collect the information, need to crawl pages, need to acquire data, need to provide the data to the machine learning, and so on. So if this is at the base of any kind of architecture. Okay, those are the patterns where you can find adapter, decorator, commander. And when you are using this, please guys, remember S and I all the time. Because here, if you segregate the behavior of the contract into the interface, for example, you need to remember the S and I. Don't create a huge interface. Also, the interface are single responsibility. Okay. Last but not the least, and here there is the wall, the firewall. Dependency inversion, not dependency injection. It's two different things. Is the inversion of the dependency. It means that the high level module should be not dependent by the lower level module, and the lower level module should be not dependent to the higher level. What does it mean, Giorgio? I need a facade that send an email. Yeah, you need to send an email. Fine. High module. Lower module, Gmail facade, send the mail with Gmail. Both are facade, but both of them have the same behavior, but no one depends each other. This is the mechanic, the policy and the mechanism to apply the mechanic, the mechanism to apply the policy, that, as you can see, is completely detached with the possible contract of the interface. And a question for you: the dependency inversion versus the dependency injection. we have iEditor, Visual Studio Code o IntelliJ, iFood, pizza, and ramen or ramen. It's two different things. This is for me, that probably Massimo after will explain to you, is the service locator pattern. The class Alice, tips, class A, B, C, D was Alice, Bob, Charlie, Dalton, and so on. Before we call class A, because we don't want to write Alice. Alice used the locator to locate the other two services that she needs. It's completely, if you think, is the inversion of the dependency of Alice. Okay, yeah, I know. The solid pattern should be used to build, deliver good quality software, a good quality development. All the concepts are interconnected. If you use one, you start to use also the other one. It's not divided. It's holistic. One, you take all. You can use one, use or less. I add or less because now the technology go so forward that sometimes you can decouple something. But at the end, you are using another another implementation that is based on the same solid principle before. Example, dependency injection. If you open the dependency injection or you need to customize the dependency injection in, for example, in .NET 6, you find exactly the application of the solid pattern in every level. So you try to avoid the solid pattern reusing the solid pattern. There is nothing between the practice and the theory. Only you. Be responsible. I don't want to do that because I don't like. You are lazy. No, not that you like. Or because you don't know. You write the code not appear on your editor like that. No, doesn't work like that. You wrote. If it's a bad code, a good solution, a bad solution, depends about you. You type. It's called imperative programming because you imperate, you write, you decide, you rule. Okay? Question. Okay, thank you very much. No, okay, there is some question. I know that is very abstract because these are abstract. If I ask you, can you explain me why you know the number 2? Or why this finger is 2? You don't know. You don't tell me. Someone teach you 1, 2. And you enumerate this quantity as 2. But normally you already know that these are 2. And you already know that 2 is less than 4. Automatically, no one can explain because this is an abstraction. And the concept of here is the same. I know that now in this word seems to count how. Golden rule. Someone call the rule. Why? What? How? Why I am doing that? What I am doing? How I am doing this? Be responsible, guys. This is the only question, the only teaching that I can leave you this evening. Okay? Okay, good. Question, really? Question? No. Yes? Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Yes? Oh, sorry. I didn't see. My fault.
Okay. When we use solid pattern.
When you mean what is the opportunity and where is the case, or you mean something other else?
When if I have some project,
Yes.
when I have dependency injection.
Sorry, before to answer you, can I ask you what is your technology, your stack that you are using?
My experience, right?
Yeah.
Now I develop C#.
Okay. Okay. In C# now, I think that you start or with 5, 6, or 3.1. What is the version?
I'm sorry. I don't understand.
Yeah. The version of .NET that you are using now is 6, 5, or .NET Core 3.1?
.NET Core.
Okay, 3.1?
.NET Core.
Okay, .NET Core. Okay, fine, no problem. Okay, in .NET Core, you find, sorry guys, in your service, you find that, you feel.
Yes, I get it. I use scope.
Yeah, also scope, transient, singleton is the same. Now, Massimo will explain that. Okay, thinking about, we have login. Simple, very simple. You have your controller, probably you have your page, you have your controller with the method login that you receive username and password, right?
I'm not sure.
Okay, simplify. Okay, simplify. You have username and password, right? Can we simplify the context in that way? So you need to think about how login this user, right?
Sorry, say again, please.
Yes. We have the use case of the login. You have your controller, right? You receive the input, right? Thinking that the input, the request is string username, string password. You need to go in the database, check if the user exists, if the password match, and come back with the session token or with the error 403, depends, okay? During thinking that, okay, I need to do 3 operations. Validate my input. So, first, segregation via. I can create my custom validator or my beautiful validator interface that probably can have validate string or validate user or I login validator, up to you. If you want to reuse, I suggest you to use string validator and implement the validation. Or if you have a specific requirement, you can create I login validator where you validate username and password according your requirement. Probably this is a possible opportunity. See? Symbol responsibility concept, interface segregation. And I started to use the Liskov and the dependency and the dependency inversion to try to reuse this component. Okay? After you need the business logic that go to check the user if the username exists in your database, and the other step of the business logic is check the password if the password match with all the criteria of encryption, salt, and so on. Okay. This is we didn't write any code. We only think about that. In this design, we already apply single responsibility concept, interface segregation, dependency inversion. When you write, what is missing? Liskov and what? Open and close. The open and close is that login, if I need to change instead of username, I need to take, for example, the phone number. I need only to extend my validator. The rest of the implementation works. For example, I give instead of username or the email, I have the phone number.
Okay.
This is an example. is here, this is an exercise that we do every morning. Here there is the junior middle developer behind you. You can ask.
Okay.
There is a guy behind you, the guy with the white shirt, that today learned something new about that. This is, guys, you learn every day. It's not also for me. I don't know anything. And I drive him, and now after the meetup, I expect that he raise the PR, because otherwise he don't go home, and if we finish before tomorrow. Okay? Tell me.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We want it to be. Could we say that we do dependency inversion because we want it to be reusable later, because we delegate the business logic to abstract class or interface,
Yes.
so that we can extend it or implement it later without any extended logic, without having any business logic in
Yes.
in concrete class
Yes,
itself.
okay, I understand. The answer is yes. What you say, right, is an effect.
Yeah.
Sometimes we are focused on the effect without see the cause. I want the flexibility of my code. If I achieve that, I need to if I want to run, I need to understand how work. I need to understand how make my code flexible. In the example of before, is the login process now is abstracted, okay, and probably is hosted in something other else, but it's a simple design that any developer do every day. So is a bit of a way to do. For that reason, I say in the key away here, there is nothing between practice and theory. Only you make the difference. Yeah. However, the dependency inversion is one of the effects is that you create flexibility in your code and in your application.
Then can we say that the only common ground between dependency inversion and dependency injection is that we could achieve loose coupling with them?
Yes and no. The point of the dependency inversion here, the dependency injection and inversion, is I'm put here because a lot of people confuse these concepts.
Sure.
Because the effect can be the same.
Yes.
But if you don't have an IOC container,
Yeah.
the dependency inversion principle don't disappear, still there. Okay, is something. This is why I say here use all or less for this case, because sometimes we have a lot of tools that seems that we are using these tools that is written with the solid principle, and we don't follow the solid principle. Always as before, we have the effect, but we need to understand why we have this effect. Is why, what, how. Now, think before. Now in .NET 6 you can have the dependency injection in the console app. Before, you need to implement that.
Yeah.
So it's completely. This doesn't mean that not exist the dependency inversion. The dependency injection is implemented in a different way. Okay.
Do you ever have any situation that you will consider a solid principle to be overkill?
No, honestly, no, because also when you need to take the shortcuts, for example, because the context of the reality drive you in that way, you need always to refactor a fall of this concept.
Sure.
So you take the shortcut, you know that you take the shortcut, but after you need to come back.
Yes, it's a dead.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Now I leave the word and the gesture to Massimo. Okay.
Hi everyone, I'm Massimo. This is me. I'm a .NET developer. I have more or less 9 years of experience. I've been working on several technologies at the beginning of my career, mainly PHP and front-end and back-end JavaScript. And then from 2015, I started to work as a back-end developer with .NET. So it's more or less 7 years I'm working, I'm focused on that. So for today, I'm going to talk about dependency injection, which is a topic that is a bit more practical than solid principles. And the reason why I want to talk about the dependency injection is that I know that like 99% of you are already using it, but I want that 1% to start to use it. And I think that like there are some concepts that as the dependency injection is so easy to use that people don't take the time to go deep and understand what was the underlying concept of the dependency injection. So yeah, we are going to see how what is the dependency injection and what types of dependency injection exist based on how the services are injected. Then why using dependency injection and what is an IOC container. And some review of the concept that I will talk about in the introduction. Then the second part will be on specifically on how to use dependency injection in .NET. And then one bonus rule that I will explain in details. So what is dependency injection? If you look online, you will find like thousands of different definitions. I will took the one that I believe is the best. So dependency injection is a design pattern that is used to implement the inversion of control and dependency inversion principles. So in dependency injection, we have 3 types of classes. The client class, that is, we can also call it the dependent class. That is a class that depends on a service class, which is the dependency. And then there is an injector class that is responsible to locate the service class and inject it into the client. So we can classify 3 types of dependency injection depending on where the services are injected. The most widely used and the one we are going to talk about today is the Constructor Injection. It's supported by the built-in IOC container of .NET. Then we have the property injection. In this kind of, or setter injection, in this kind of dependency injection, the dependencies are passed into the setter of the properties. And like, honestly, I never see anyone using the method injection. In the method injection, basically, the class, the client class exposes a method that receives the dependencies and set it into a local property. So why should we use dependency injection? So as I said, we are going to talk about constructor injection. So to get a client class ready for the construction injection, we need to move from some implementation like this. So where we new up the dependency inside the constructor to something like this, where we receive the dependency directly as a parameter in the constructor. So with this simple change, we get this big list of advantages, so it's quite easy. And what we are doing here, we are promoting loose coupling of components, because at this point we are not coupling anymore the implementation of this class to the product service class. But instead, any class that implements the iProduct repository interface can be passed, and it will work fine. Then, using dependency injection is the only way to support proper unit testing, because if we don't inject the repositories in this case, we don't have a way then to mock it later, unless we start to use some strange kind of interceptors and very complicated. So we can keep our code cleaner and more readable. Then another advantage is to obey to the dependency inversion principle, which is the D of the solid principle Giorgio talked about before. So just to recap, the high-level modules should not depend on the low-level modules, but both of them should depend on the abstraction. And again, the abstraction in this case is the interface, and both of them depend on the interface. So the last advantage that we get is to obey the inversion of control principle, which basically says that we should transfer the creation of the objects outside of the dependent class to an external class, which is a container or a framework, which is called IOC container or DI container. So what is a DI container? It's a framework, a software component to implement automatic dependency injection. And this required action that we need to be able to do with DI container are to register services, resolve them, and dispose them when they are not needed anymore. So what we mean with the register is to instruct the DI container on what implementation of a certain interface we should provide when we encounter like a request for that interface. Resolve is done automatically by the container, which involves three actions, which are resolve, instantiate, and inject. So once we require a service to the DI container should be able to find that service, be able to create an object of that service, so instantiate an object of the service, and inject it into the dependent class or service or client class. The last action is to dispose. So once we instructed the DI container on how long we want this service to live, the DI container, if the service is disposable, should be able to dispose it automatically. To recap, the inversion of control and dependency injection are principles that we can obey implementing the pattern that is a dependency injection. And to do that, we need to use this framework or component called IOC container. So in .NET, how we can use constructor dependency injection? It's very simple, so there is no excuse not to use it. We register a service and we resolve the service. So when we register the service, here there are a few things we are doing in only one line. So everything you need to do to use dependency injection is this line. So it's quite simple. So in this line, what we do is we add the service as transient. So transient is a service lifetime. That is a concept that we are going to cover very soon. The iProduct service is the type of that we want to resolve. And the product service is the implementation that needs to be provided once the class is requested. Then to use it, it's very simple. We add the parameter in the constructor, and we set the service to a private field, and we can simply use it in a method. So here we introduce the concept of service lifetime. Before explaining that, it's useful to understand what is a service scope. So you can think about the service scope as child DI containers. So every time you create a new scope, you are basically creating a new DI container that will live for a shorter time than the root scope. So you have two ways to create new scopes. One is manually, with using the create scope method that is exposed by the iService provider interface. And the other one is to let in just web application .NET create automatically the scope for each request that it receives, which it makes sense most of the time. So we have, as I said, the service lifetime is a way to control how long should a service live before it gets disposed. And we have three ways to register a service that are transient, singleton, and scoped. So the difference between them is that the transient services are instantiated once every time that they get requested, and they get disposed together with if the scope is disposed. For the singleton, they are already instantiated once, and they are tracked by the root scope, which means that they will last for the entire application lifetime. So they are disposed only when the application exits or it's stopped. And for the scope service, they will act as a singleton inside the scope. So for a web application, a scope service will keep, if you require a scope service multiple times during the same request, you will get the same instance. On the subsequent request, you will get a new instance. So this is a good representation of the three lifetime types. So for the entire application lifetime, you get the same singleton instance. For the scope services, for each request, we get a different one. For the transient, we get different instances for each request that we make to the DI container. How we register the services with different service lifetimes? Very easy. We have three different methods exposed by the iService collection interface, which are add transient, add singleton, and add scope. Yeah, and I guess they don't need more explanation. So one tricky thing to do when working with dependency injection is to understand which type of the service lifetime you should be using. And it's very important to understand these concepts, because if you choose the wrong service lifetime, you can get unexpected behaviors. So for the transient, we can use it when we have when our service has a no-share state during the execution, which means is that we don't want to persist the state of that service every time the service is requested, but instead we want to instantiate the class again with a new fresh state. It's very important to use them in case of multiple threads, when the service is not thread safe. Is the only type of lifetime that we should use in this case. And if they have the transient dependency, such as HTTP client, that it's intended to have a short lifetime. In general, you don't want to inject transient services into longer-lived services, because they will start to behave like the longer-lived service. So if, for example, I have one Singleton service and I inject a transient service in that instance, it will live for the entire application lifetime, because it will stay on the same object as the Singleton. Then, for the Singleton, we have few cases where we can use it. If we have like a cache service that needs to have a shared state, and if the service is completely stateless, like for example a utility class, so in that case we don't have any state, we just have methods that take parameters and return values, so we can avoid reinstantiating it every time. And for the scope, we have very specific case where we can use it. Unless you are working on a console application or like a desktop application where you have some use case for the scopes and you start handling manually yourself. In a web application, usually we use it for all the services that we want to have like a transactional behavior for the request. So very common use case, database DB context repositories. So if you want to implement database transactions, they are perfect, because you get a request, you keep getting the same DB context during that request, you can roll back the changes that you were doing on the DB context. So the difference between .NET Core and .NET Core 5 and 6 to register services is that in the version 5 we get injected actually the iService collection implementation in the configure service in the startup class, and we can add the services to that collection. In .NET 6, we have the service collection inside the builder, so we can add it from here. Last bonus rule is what happens in case we have a client class that has multiple constructors. Which one of the constructors will be used to instantiate the class? The rule says that the constructor with the most parameters that are DI resolvable will be used. So in this case, for example, if the logger is resolvable, but the full service or the bar service are not, the first constructor will be used, because this constructor has two parameters, but they are not DI resolvable. So it will be used first. In the case both of them are resolvable, it will use the second, because this has two services, while this one has two parameters, while this one has only one parameter. In case of ambiguities, so classes that have the same number of parameters that are DI resolvable, an exception will be thrown. Any question? Okay, thank you. Oh.
So what's the difference between the last page you used two constructor? So what's the difference between if we just use one constructor and then just inject all.
On which one of these?
Yeah, yeah. Let's
Okay.
say, yeah.
So basically, when we request this service, the DI container at some point will need to decide how to instantiate this class. So if is able to resolve by himself both of these services, it will use this constructor to instantiate this class and will not use this at all. But if it's not able to resolve it because we didn't register it before, we didn't register these two services before to the DI container, it will use the one that it finds. If none of them is found, you will get an exception.
So it's like based on the function you will call, right?
Again, sorry?
So it's like based on the function you will call. The function that you will call is it's not meant to lock. You don't have to call that constructor, something like that.
I mean, these two constructors, we don't call them manually. It's the DI container calling them. So
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends. Like it will follow the rule. Basically, it will count the resolvable.
Because normally when I write, I just inject all in only one constructor.
Yeah, I mean, there are like if you want, for example, it's not a common case. But if you want to have like a way to also manually instantiate your class with passing the logger in, because you know that you are not going to use these two services, this is, I mean, this is one is useful, and second, you need anyway to have a rule that dictates which one will use. So it's not very common to see, but. I mean, I didn't know about this before, so I find out, and probably at some point I will be able to use it.
Okay. I got another question.
Yep.
So you just said in case of like utility functions, we don't have to create an instance, so we can use Singleton, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's the difference if we use Singleton and then use just static class and static function?
Well, so with the singleton, you get the advantage that you get your constructor executed when you instantiate it. So if you want to do something, if you want to read something, I don't know, and you want to perform some action, you get the constructor to be executed.
Yeah.
In a static class, you don't get that.
Got it. Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm not familiar with .NET framework, so my question is, why will we use scoped lifetime for HTTP requests? Why would we use scope lifetime for HTTP requests instead of transient, since transient is live and get displayed after each request?
Not after. Okay, the difference is that the transient, you get a new instance every time you request it. It resolved by the DI container. The scope, it's you get a new instance for every HTTP request. So every time you need to perform an action that it's related to that request, and you want to share the state of that service for the entire request, which is not that uncommon, it's useful to use the scope. But if you don't want to share the state at all, you need to use the transient.
Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, I'll leave the stage to Nicolas.
fun. Okay. Last one for tonight is introduction to GraphQL. And more specifically, how I start to play with GraphQL. So for me, my background is like more REST APIs. So REST APIs I know well, and today is like more about like discussing what is GraphQL and what can it provide, or how can it help us, the devs, the one that consumes the API, and what can happen in the backend. So this is really high level, not too many detail. Yeah, so just try something new. For me, a little bit of background. So I remove all the badges. So yeah, I'm more cloud architect from a Java background. So playing with .NET and GraphQL. So a lot of playing around. Yeah. So yeah, GraphQL. So this one, you can look at it on a website. So GraphQL is more like a query language, a little bit like what you can have like on a SQL server or in a MongoDB. So you just basically start to say, I want this, I want that. And then this GraphQL basically will try to get the information that you need and how you asked it. And basically this is like runtime, and they will just run it, resolve, and return the information back to you. So if you compare a little bit to REST API, when you call a REST endpoint, you don't ask for anything. You just call it, and they give you everything back. There is no like queries at all. Okay, so saying that it's like a system with queries, basically we need to define like some types, some objects with like entities where we'll be able to run queries. So we just listed like object types, interface, union, enumerations, fields, and list. So these are the objects that you can find in GraphQL, and you can define. For example, an object type is like for defining a type that you want to have in return, or that you want to manage or want to modify. Interface is a kind of abstraction that you have like in any object-oriented language where you can abstract and reuse. Union is like opposite of. Union is more like the intersection between two objects that you want to manipulate. So I don't know scenarios, but some of them may require this. Enumeration, the same as you can have on an API where you define each possible values and where you expect defined values in a list. Fields and list. On the other hand, so now with the left side, you have like defined objects. But what do you have inside? So we still need scalars, which is kind of like a primitive in Java or any other languages. So you can find again string, float, integer, boolean, ID, and some custom objects that you can manipulate. Before was more about defining what we would be manipulating. So objects, and then some scalars, which are objects that you know, strings, integer, and so on. GraphQL comes with at least the two on the left that we use really often is like when I want to get data, this one is a queries. So this one is a kind of an action. So you will say like, for example, I want to query. Then you have a kind of a function where you say, oh, I want something with name. And then you say, I want to return title and author on this. And then on the middle, you have like more something that is called mutation, is more when you want to update or modify the data. So those two types are something that you can have on a REST API with get and post and put and patch. So this one kind of we know already. And the last one, subscription, actually is the one that is kind of interesting for me. So subscription is like when you want to subscribe to an event or a change, or when you want to push an event to your backend. So the subscription actually, it's like the GraphQL will open a connection over WebSockets. So you can have like a seamless connection back and forth between your client and the backend. Just you start to notice this kind of notation. So here you kind of like say, I want this parameter Q to be equals to name, and then they will search for you with name, with the name. And here you start to define what you want to receive on the output. So here you can add more attributes if your object has more, or you can just say, okay, I only want title, you can remove author. And you can also do the same for the mutation. So here you say, I want to create an update. This is my input, and this is what will be returned. So here you can be selective on if you want to return all the attributes or just one or none. And you have the same on the subscription. Yeah, so this one is a little bit like a more high-level diagram. Basically, in our applications, most of the time now, we start to have like maybe more like a website and a mobile applications, 1 or 2 or 3, and sometimes a chatbot. And then we can say that we have like an e-commerce platform on the middle, and then we have some integration on the back. So could be NoSQL database, HTTP endpoint, SQL database. Here, the challenge is all those channels don't require to display the same information, and maybe all of them don't need everything. So for example, when I'm chatting with the chatbot, could be like, hey, how are you? What do you want to buy? And then they can start to return like maybe 2 or 3 products to the customer, maybe with a photo and the name of the product, and maybe price, and maybe not stock, because for now it's not really useful. And you can continue the conversation and say, oh, are you interested in this product? And then we can say, okay, this is a stock. And if you compare this to a website, on a website, you will have like all of this information displayed on the page. And mobile may display some of them, but not all. So what we are trying to solve here is like to be able to have a query language to only get the information that we need on a specific client. So that's one thing. And on the other side, we have like multiple databases or data source. And we want to kind of aggregate the data that are stored on those systems and be able to combine and to send this information back. So seems like GraphQL with this query language can help us to solve this. So here is like the list of the challenges or what we are trying to solve. So like we said before, is like data may be different on all the devices. The information displayed may be different, and they may need the information at different time. So if we have a query language, it start to be interesting to it start to be interesting. Here is like more on the when you want to consume an API or yeah, an API basically. When you want to consume instantly. So basically you want to be able to see the documentation straight away. You want to be able to consume, you want to manipulate the data. So we can see later like how you can manipulate and how you can browse in GraphQL and how it can help you compared to a REST endpoint. What is also useful is with GraphQL, you can, like we said, like basically select the information that you need. So for example, if you have like a low network or anything, and your app is optimized to only fetch and display the strict necessary information, GraphQL starts also to be really interesting because we don't need to return everything. The client can select and pick what he wants to display. And the last one is because basically when you consume an API or when you are like on a mobile side or the mobile application, you don't really want to know what's behind. You may want to know, but you just like, okay, there is an endpoint, it's documented, I want to query, give me my data, and then I will do my stuff. So yeah, this GraphQL brings a little bit of abstraction. This is like a quick comparison between REST. So when you do, when you used to work with REST, actually we have a bunch of endpoints. We try to make all the kind of queries predefined ahead of time, and try to list all of them and try to define. So on the tech side, actually, it's like simple to set up. No logic. We think once, and then we fetch the information. But after, we will be limited on how we can manipulate, sort, and filter the data. GraphQL has this in like out of the box. But REST APIs is not over yet. So if we go in a little bit more detail, here is like how we can define a type in GraphQL. So here you find again like it's an object, and you can find the fields, and you can find here the scalars, so ID, string, int, float, and so on. So you defined a type, and then basically when you will call GraphQL, you will be able to manipulate this object and possibly display a page on a mobile or website or a chatbot. Now it's a little bit more hands-on. So how I tried it. So this one, .NET New Web. So name of the project demo. Really clean project with .NET 6. And then you need to, I just added the hot chocolate package. That is a package for GraphQL on .NET that we add the middleware on the ASP.NET Core. Okay, you install. Then we can start to define our types. So you can define, I can't like describing with like a object in C#. So that's how you define it. Nothing new. Then here I went simple way. I did not integrate with the database. But here you can start to say, okay, I want to create a class query. And inside you can start also to describe like what type of query that you can have. So okay. So I guess I want later to be able to see all the shoes or one shoe that I have like on my e-commerce platform. So you define one query, you name it, and after you define the logic inside how it will be handled and returned. So later here this can be dynamic. But yeah. So when we will call this query, we will have this information in return. Yeah, so before it was like all files separated, not linked together. So now, just for Massimo, yeah, we need to add our hot chocolate to the dependency injection container. So when you create the default project, they already have the builder. You just need to add basically that you want to add the GraphQL server, and you need to add query type query. So this class is the one that we define here. So once we add this class, the hot chocolate package will be able to see how we define the queries and what they are. And after, because when we just do like this, actually we don't have any endpoint exposed. It's just in a service, DI container. We have one last step is to expose the GraphQL API and kind of an explorer that you can access on your web browser. Okay. So just to start, so actually this endpoint you can try at home. You can call it's like on localhost and the .NET port. So this is provided by Hot Chocolate. So what you can have, actually this screen is decomposed in three sections, but the most interesting one are operation and schema reference. Let's start with schema reference. So when you go here, actually they will list all the objects that you define or all the types that you defined. So you can see all the dependency and all the links between them. When you have this like a bang, it's mean like object non-nullable. And yeah, you can browse the documentation, auto-generated, and you can see straight away, compared to a REST API where I need to do a little bit more work. Then, let's say if I want to search, or I want to call the queries that we did before, actually you can go in our operation tab and start to describe like this. So here you just, when it's a query, you just need to define the object that you want back and the information that you need. So here I just say, I want to see all the books with the name, and then what is the brand, and should be true, and the name of the brand. So here, for example, if you want only book and name, you can omit this section, and then they will only return the book and the name. So you have like some flexibility on what you can query and what you will receive. Just for this one, so if you try, you can make some mistakes. Actually, when you type, they can analyze and say like the query that you are trying to type is completely wrong, and they have like auto-completion in the Explorer. So really fun to use compared to a REST API. The second one is mutation. So mutation, you just need to add on top mutation. And then you can define the same as query, you can name them. So here's like add a shoe, and then you can pass as you would normally do, like in a parameter, the information that you want to mutate or update. And then you always can define what you want in return. So you can, for example, pass a bunch of information and say, oh, I only want the name in return, and you can omit this, and then they will only return the name. So you have like control over what you send, what you can receive, and give a little bit more flexibility. Just a quick conclusion, or what are my thoughts on this GraphQL. So if we start, actually for GraphQL, what I really like about this is, or at least when I tried, is the flexibility on how you can query and manipulate. It's like more dynamic than a REST API, so you can have fun and play with it and just tweak the objects. A little bit more real-time application oriented. So with this like subscribe, my guess is like it's built in, so you can think of application over a WebSocket that you would normally not do with other protocol. So this one may be fun to try. And where the interesting part is more like if you have like complex objects or hierarchy, it could start to be interesting, because a REST API on the other end is like static and fixed. So you need to define everything beforehand. Here you expose all your data model, and the users can play and just receive what they are interested in, or query or update what they want to do. So easier to consume by the client, because what I forgot to say is when you define the types, actually you are defining with a scalar. So when you are on your Explorer or when you are on a mobile app, you definitely define what are the types. So when someone consumes a GraphQL API, there will be an error straight away that says this type doesn't match, something is wrong. And that's make the life of the client a little bit easier, and the documentation is generated, you can play with it. So clients are a little bit better on this side. So REST API is not dead. Still easier to develop, at least on what I think. but a little bit more complex for the integration because we need still to generate documentation. They will retrieve all the data even if they don't want to. Yeah. And I guess that's it. Q&A. No question.
Thank you to Nicolas. Okay, for today is everything. Please, I force you to leave first a feedback, scan the QR code here or the QR code that you have on the table before to grab your slice of pizzas or your beer or your soft drinks. Why? This is very important for us to regulate the next meetup, whatever is the technology, to understand what you want to listen. You want to listen more code, more abstract things, the latest technology of the moment, whatever. Is vital for us to keep alive the session of the 7 Speaks. After this, after that you leave your feedback, please, I say you thanks to come here. Also for the people that are at home, that follow us on the social media and the lives. Thanks also to you. And have a good night and see you next. Bye guys. Ciao.
Sorry, just to add, please show us the feedback completion page after like you finish the survey, and our staff will see it's like used for getting the free pizza. So yeah, thank you so much guys for coming.